we forget, we are so impatient with young people these days. Mike Krzyzewski had a losing record at Army. 5 years into Duke, they were getting sandblasted by ACC teams, and they gave him a contract extension. And I think that gets lost in this, is that you go back to John Wooden, as you know, Ian. He didn't win big for a long time. But let's go back and discuss this. This book is so fun. It really is. When you bring in the Bob Knight stuff, it is jet fuel to this book. It is just, you can't get enough of this. But let's go back. How the heck did he get that Duke job? I know because I read it. He had a losing record at Army, and in fact, Bob Knight was a much better coach at Army than Krzyzewski. It would be easy to go, well, Knight's the great coach. You're a shadow of Knight. Why did he get it?
Well, Knight helped him get it, and thanks for the kind words, Colin. But Knight was a fairly big advocate of Mike getting that job at Duke. Now, he was 9-17 that final season. Tom Butters, the AD at Duke, deserves so much credit for having the you-know-what to hire him at 9-17 coming out of Army. Steve Visendak was an official in the athletic department, former player, and he was an advocate too. He had seen Mike coach at Army and was a pretty big believer in him and sort of, hey, you don't know how to pronounce his name. You certainly don't know how to spell it, but the guy's a really good defensive coach. You, Tom, believe in defense. Let's give this guy a chance. And Butters loved him in the interview process, and he just had a hard time pulling the trigger. How am I going to sell this to an ACC fan base? Bill Foster just took us to the national championship game. I'm going to hire a 9-17 coach at Army nobody's ever heard of, but he did. Those early years were brutal, and the boosters were calling for his head. Fans, students, faculty members wanted him out. He lost, you said ACC opponents. He lost to Wagner at home. Wagner, if you go back and look at that Wagner team in the ECAC Metro, I believe they were in, they were terrible in that conference. They were losing to LIU, St. Francis of New York, and they beat Duke at Duke. And that was the point where it really looked like Mike could not survive. Somehow he hung in there. Butters, out of nowhere, gives him a contract extension, and the rest is history. He got that recruiting class, Billis, Allery, Dawkins, Henderson, and really that saved him. Without that recruiting class, he gets fired.
Yeah, Johnny Dawkins, there's a moment with Johnny Dawkins where I think they beat Carolina and they have this embrace. There's a funny line. Tell the audience here. So it's the moment. It's Mike's. It really crystallizes, to me, the book. The center point of the book is that moment where, Dean Smith is godlike. Mike, at one point, challenges the media to have an equal standard. You treat them like this and us like the little engine, which, by the way, they mostly were. But that Johnny Dawkins, that win, that moment, that embrace in that story.
Right, and finally beating Carolina in a big moment on a big stage. And before that game, he had told his players, at that point, Duke had gotten pretty good. So they were not a huge underdog in that game, but expected to lose. And he told his players, expect to win. And when we win, don't act like you haven't been there before. Act like you expected to do exactly what you just did, which is beat North Carolina, your biggest rival. So they win the game, and Krzyzewski's dancing around. He's happier than anybody, and he hugs Dawkins, and Dawkins says to him, Coach, I thought we weren't really supposed to celebrate this. That's what you said. And Coach K, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have the page in front of me, shut up, Johnny. Let's just enjoy this, okay? So I thought that really was a beautiful scene. But yeah, Krzyzewski he did not follow his own advice. His players tried to, but then they saw how happy Mike was and they played along.